When I think of the word hood, I think of a person, a place, and perhaps even a thing. I'm Sir Creepsta, and welcome to Unionville County Ghost Stories from the Hood Shorts. So, sit back, relax, grab up your snacks, and be terrified by the ghost stories that I'm about to bring to you. It was a cold winter's night. Courtney and Scotty had gone down to the local theater to check out the new Richard Pryor movie entitled Which Way Is Up, and were making their way back down the tracks leading to the hood. About midways down the tracks, the two of them started hearing barking dog sounds coming from the front yard of Ethel Reno's house, the very same woman who had also been thought to be the neighborhood witch for various reasons. The closer the two of them got to the front of the pathway leading to her house, the louder the dogs began to bark. These hounds of hell were always on their chains, thank God, so neither one of the guys feared them coming up out of the darkness and onto the tracks to perhaps try and bite them or even maul them. So they continued to walk past them as quickly as they could and made their way toward their respective homes. Right as they passed by Ethel's lair, Scotty said to Courtney, "Did you hear that?" Courtney replied back to Scotty, asking him, "Hear what?" Scotty quickly answered back by asking Courtney if he had heard what sounded like the dogs talking amongst each other in between their barks. The blood ran cold in Courtney's veins as he replied back to Scotty, surprisingly in a low voice, saying, "Yes, I did. I just didn't want to believe it. Just thought I was hearing things at first." As the two of them looked at each other in utter fear and disbelief, the dogs could be clearly heard saying to the others, "Someone is on the tracks," with the another dog replying, in between barks, "Yes, it is. I see and hear them too." This scared the two boys so much that they both struck out running down the tracks as fast as their young legs would carry them. It would be months before either one of the guys would use the tracks, especially after dark, to go into town for anything. About a year after their frightful experience, Miss Reno, also known as the witch, was found dead on her front porch from what appeared to have been a combination of hypothermia and old age. In regards to her talking hounds from hell, they were never seen nor heard from again. But before I go any further, please don't forget to smash the devil out of that like button. Also, click on the bell icon so that you can stay in the loop each and every time I drop a brand new video. Having grown up in the small country town of Luzerne, Kentucky, Granny Mae had seen more than her share of trains whenever she decided to make the short trip to Central City, whether they be cargo or passenger, passing through the neighborhood multiple times on a daily and nightly basis. So the thought of anything out of the ordinary, or perhaps even supernatural, involving a simple train was the furthest thing from Granny Mae's mind. This had all changed for her on one calm summer's night back in 1939. While sitting at home, bored to death, Granny Mae decided to once again make the trip to Central City to hook up with one of her female relatives that lived there. So she asked her oldest brother if he wouldn't mind giving her a lift to Central City to visit with her cousin. Upon arriving in Central City, her cousin asked her if she wanted to take a walk into town and go by one of the local diners just to grab a quick bite to eat and spend a few hours of quality time together, seeing that it had been a while since the two of them had seen one another. The railroad tracks that ran through the neighborhood was by far the shortest route to get to downtown. So off they went, two hungry cousins, ready to grab a delicious bite to eat. After finishing up their meal and sitting around a little afterwards to allow their meal time to digest, the two made their way out of the diner and back towards the hood. About midways down the tracks, Granny Mae would stop in her tracks and asked her cousin if she heard music. Her cousin also had heard something and quickly responded back to Granny Mae saying, "Yes, I hear it too." Unable to pinpoint the source from which the sound was coming from, they immediately picked up their pace while looking all around for the source from the music was coming from. Then Granny Mae motioned to her cousin and softly said, "I think it's coming from above our heads." About that time, the two of them thought to hear what sounded like a train horn, followed up by the sounds of several people singing what sounded like gospel music. At that moment, the two girls struck out running toward the cousin's house and didn't stop until they had reached the inside of the home. With their hearts frantically racing simultaneously, they looked at one another with fear in their eyes and vowed then to never use the tracks as a means of getting into town ever again. And even until this day, some say that on warm summer nights, if in the right place at the right time, you can still hear the train's horn sounding off, followed up by the sweet sounds of gospel music by forces unseen. The timeline of this story was in the mid-50s, 1955 to be exact. Marie and Betty had just finished up their chore for the day, which was washing the linen. Although electric washing machines were available to the public, Granny Lou always liked the vintage-style machines better, often stating to her friends that they seemed to get her laundry cleaner. After washing, then running the linen through the hand-cranked wringer, Marie and Betty grabbed it all up and went outside in the backyard of Granny's house to hang it on the clothesline to dry. While standing there bickering amongst one another about how they wished that Granny Lou would stop being so tight and just go and buy an electric washing machine with the money they both knew Granny Lou always kept in her stash spot, they were approached by a mysterious lady dressed in all black, who had demanded that they take her to their Granny Lou at once. Unaware of who this stranger was, the girls cautiously made their way to the front door of the house, entered in, and directed the lady to the master bedroom where Granny Lou was lying ill in bed, with her daughter and a son-in-law standing beside her. Granny Lou had been sick and bedridden for some unknown sickness for the past few days. Several days had passed by long after the doctor had made a house call and had left her home, unable to detect what Granny Lou was sick of. As the two girls stood by the doorway and listened in, they could hear the mysterious lady in black tell her children that their mother was sick, very sick, from an apparent hex. They had been placed on her by someone that had wanted her out of the way or gone from the world in which she knew it. This news was followed up immediately with instructions of what to do to lift this wicked curse off of their loved one. Baffled and confused at first, Lovey took heed to the ladies in black instructions and went outside in the backyard and dug in the spot that the lady had instructed him to do so. To his disbelief, after some aggressive digging, he heard a clank. When he cleared the dirt away, he found the item in which the lady had told him to look for. Inside of the jar that he dug up was what appeared to be a long braid of human hair. But not only was there a braid of hair in the jar, it was longer than Granny Lou's hair was at the time. The hair looked as if it had continued to grow while sealed up inside the jar. This scared the living daylights out of Lovey, but he still followed the stranger's instructions and disposed of the hair in a manner that was told to do so. Granny Lou's daughter and son-in-law were also told that Granny Lou would see the person that did this awful thing to her one more time, and after that she would never see her again. A day passed by, and the two girls would wake up in the morning from a hard night's sleep to the smell of bacon cooking in the kitchen and the sounds of a Negro spiritual ringing in the air coming from the mouth of Granny Lou, who looked and acted as if nothing had ever happened to her, appearing not to remember anything about all the trauma that she had just been through, or how close she actually was to meeting her maker, if it wasn't for the visit from the mysterious lady in black. Until the day she died, Granny Lou never found out who had put the hex on her. The year was 1980. Clarence and three of his closest friends had all decided on doing a little ghost chasing by going to a rumored haunted house that sat smack dead in the middle of the woods surrounding Lake Malone, which was a family resort located in Dunmore, Kentucky. Lake Malone was only about a 15 or 20-minute ride from Central City, so the guys gathered together about 8:30 p.m., swung through Cleveland, Kentucky to make a quick pit stop at the local bootlegger to grab up some beer, and then headed south up Highway 431 en route to seek out and find the alleged haunted house that got its reputation for being that way due to the grisly death of a young man that had been allegedly kidnapped and his body found later after he had been reported missing, tied to a chair with his eyes wide open and his hair having turned solid white from the sight of something that had scared him to death. Upon arriving at the designed location at about 9:15 p.m., and after downing about 11 beers, the guys were all pumped up to go out and seek this house, in which Clarence had heard about from a friend of the family while sitting at his family's dinner table to pass Thanksgiving, swapping ghost stories amongst each other. Ken pulled up to the clearing in the pitch-black woods, and he and the rest of the guys exited the car, went to the trunk to grab their flashlights, and the gang of brave ghost hunters struck out walking down a dark and narrow path in the spooky woods. The group of guys could hear the sounds of nature all around them as they proceeded to walk what felt like 10 minutes or so in search of the haunted house, but they saw no signs of it anywhere. By now, a couple of the guys had started to rag Clarence about the existence of it, making it very clear to him that they didn't believe his story at all. A few minutes later, they stopped in their tracks and told him that they were tired of looking for something that isn't here. They told Clarence that they just wanted to turn back, go to the car, and head back to Central City, and that's exactly what the group did. Sensing the feeling of complete letdown from Clarence as they rode back to Central City, the group told him that they would be willing to come back to Lake Malone and search for the house when it was daylight outside. The following day, the group met up at about 1 p.m. and headed back to Lake Malone. Arriving at the site that they were at around 1:45 p.m., the group exited the car and made their way to the same narrow path that they were on the night before. About 10 minutes or so into the walk, Jamie motioned to the guys that he could see something ahead of them. As they walked a few feet further, there it was, as big as all outdoors, this creepy, massive 2-story rundown mansion. The guys couldn't believe what they were seeing, for they all knew that the night before they had taken the exact same path and found nothing. And judging by the enormous size of the house, there was no way that they could have missed it. This sent goosebumps running through the body of each and every one of the guys, and it was obvious that they was all scared to death. At that moment, Clarence knew that neither he nor any of his friends were about to take a foot inside this creepy monstrosity of a home, like they'd all planned to do so, especially seeing that it seemed to have just appeared out of nowhere overnight. For they knew for a fact that it wasn't there just the night before. To this very day, Clarence or any of the friends made that trip to the haunted house never stepped foot on the pathway that led up to it ever again. That's all I have for tonight, folks. I hope you've enjoyed my stories. If so, be on the lookout for more to come. I am Sir Creepsta. Until next time, stay terrified.